All right, I'd like to welcome everybody today. As you know, we're here to talk about a case of 44-year-old murder that was solved and the incredible work that was done to get us to this point. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody that took time to come here and listen to this story. The order of events will go, I'll list them out, as well as a little bit of the ground rules and the introductions. You'll be provided at the end with a packet, information packet that has a lot of the information you're probably looking for. It'll ask for your email and all that other stuff so that we can contact you, and we're happy to do so. So, a couple of ground rules, please, no questioning during the individual presentations. Questions will be taken following Chief Padilla's closing remarks. Presenters will be available following the presentation for questions, individual interviews. Remember, this is an ongoing investigation, so some of the information we're not able to release at this time, but we're happy to answer what questions we can. Again, the media packets will be available for you at the end. The order of speakers will be Chief of Police Rafael Padilla, followed by Mayor Dana Ralph, followed by FBI Special Agent in Charge Rick Collada, King County Deputy Prosecutor, and then family representatives, followed up by Chief of Police Rafael Padilla. All right.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Kasner. Good afternoon. I want to express my sincere appreciation for those who have gathered today for this press conference, and a special thank you to the Yancer family that's here. We know that this is a deeply painful thing to go through, while at the same time incredibly meaningful and important. So thank you for being here. So our story. Today we have an important story to tell. One that starts out many years ago with tragedy, grief, loss, unanswered questions, and a void in the criminal justice system's ability to bring a suspect to justice. And now, more than 44 years later, we begin the final chapters of this story, finding some answers, making significant steps towards achieving justice and accountability, and hopefully providing Dottie's family with the opportunity for healing and closure. The incident. On February 23rd, 1980, sometime just after 10 p.m., Dorothy, Dottie, Maria Cizelle left work at Gaetano's Pizza to go home. This would be the last time she would be seen alive. 3 days later, her co-workers from Boeing called and let us know that she had not shown up for work for 2 days, and this was hugely unusual for Dottie. Kent Patrol Officer Bob Burwell, now retired Kent Sergeant Bob Burwell, was dispatched to meet Dottie's family and her co-workers at her condominium on the East Hill to perform a welfare check to see what was going on. It was on this sad day that Dottie was discovered murdered in her condominium, and our story began at that point forward till today. But before I complete the story, I want to share a little about who Dorothy Marie Cizelle, Dottie to her family and friends, was. We have a picture of her here, representing her in the workplace here, that we want to make sure we honor the human being that we all lost on that fateful day. Dottie was originally from Mandan, North Dakota, and graduated high school there. After high school, she worked at the school district. She would later move to Washington and live in the Seattle area for about 12 years. Just prior to her death, she had recently purchased a condominium on the East Hill of Kent, moving here from Renton. She was just 30 years old and in the zenith of her life. What we know is that she was hardworking. She worked 2 jobs. She was a training supervisor for Boeing in Renton, where she trained new engineers, and she also worked on weekends at Gaetano's Pizza on the side. We know she was compassionate and caring, volunteering her time often to give back to the community. She was a perennial annual volunteer for Special Olympics, bringing purpose to a community and joy to children and adults with intellectual disabilities. And we know she was loved. What we have here today representing her family is just one small part. The Yancer family is large. and they loved her dearly. She was survived by 8 siblings total, numerous extended family, and her parents at the time, who have since passed. Very, very much love. And we know that Dottie was not forgotten. Her family surely made sure of that. You will hear about that when I tell the story. Never forgetting what happened, never stopping and urging and encouraging us to continue to keep this case active. And all of that resulted in where we are today with the suspected murderer in custody and us sharing this story. So for the investigation, back on that February 26th day, Kent officers and crime scene investigators responded and thoroughly processed the crime scene, collecting evidence, including DNA, and it was their extensive and exhaustive work to collect and preserve that evidence that made the eventual identification of Dottie's murderer possible. All of the prior Kent officers who worked this case have long since retired, and a couple of them have even passed away. But I can't underscore the importance of the role they played in this case. The King County medical examiner at the time of the murder would later determine that the cause of death for Dottie was asphyxia by means of cervical compression. The ME's report also indicated that there was blunt force impact trauma to her head. At the time, all forensic methodology and technology that was available was brought to bear on the investigation. But as we all know, DNA evidence and the technology back at that point was not what it is today. The Washington State Patrol Crime Lab, with the limited resources, did do a DNA analysis, and they determined that the DNA evidence from the scene came back to a male who was subsequently identified as individual A, our unknown suspect. Like I mentioned, back then we did not have the databases to support the work or the technology. CODIS, Combined DNA Index System database, was not available for cross-reference and checks. Fast forward to 1996. Additional DNA evidence from the case was examined and sent to the Forensic Science Associates in California, but still no match to individual A. Over the years, DNA from persons of interest were submitted and compared, but still no matches. In 2015, the Yancer family, who never gave up on Dottie, contacted Sergeant Tim Ford, who at the time supervised the Kent Police Major Crimes Unit, and they requested of him that someone be assigned to continue the case and look into the investigation further. Normally, this case would be assigned to a detective. Sergeants generally assign cases, they don't take them on themselves. But in this case, Tim felt compelled. It pulled on his heart, and he took it upon himself to take this case and work it. And he did so for the past 9 years. In 2022, senior forensic genealogist Misty Gillis performed additional genealogy comparisons of the DNA profile from an individual A. With their advanced technology, they identified 11 potential suspects. That began the work to collect and compare DNA samples and eliminate suspects from the group. 2 of the suspects identified were Kurt and Kenneth Kundert, brothers living in Arkansas. In September of 2023, Sergeant Ford and Kent detectives began to look into the Kundert brothers and were advised they were both in custody for an unrelated assault charge in Arkansas, where they resided. Sergeant Ford coordinated with the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office to request voluntary DNA from the brothers. Kurt Kundert gave voluntary DNA. Kenneth did not. We were able to eliminate Kurt from the suspect list because his DNA was confirmed not to match that of individual A. Kent detectives continued the investigation, collecting evidence. They determined that Kenneth Kundert had ties to Washington. They established that he had worked in the Snohomish County area in 1987. They also discovered that Kenneth and his brother lived in an apartment complex about 1,200 feet away from where Dottie was murdered. In March of 2024, Sergeant Ford and detectives in the Kent Police Special Investigations Unit traveled to Clinton, Arkansas to conduct surveillance on Kenneth Kundert. They were assisted by the FBI, the Arkansas 20th Judicial Drug Task Force, and the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office. During that operation, they were able to obtain a discarded cigarette belonging to Kenneth Kundrat. That was our DNA sample. That DNA cigarette was determined by the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab to match that of individual A, our suspect. On August 20th, 2024, Sergeant Ford, Kent Homicide Detective Brendan Wells, Kent Special Investigations Unit Detectives Dan Yagi and Aaron Lai returned to Arkansas to arrest Mr. Kundrat. Assisted by the FBI, the Arkansas Judicial Drug Task Force, and the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office, he was located and taken into custody without incident. Mr. Kundrat is currently in Van Buren Correctional Facility where he is booked for a nationwide murder warrant out of Washington. His bail is set at $3 million and he is awaiting extradition. The other part of this story has to deal with a Kent police sergeant who did not give up on this case, and that would be Sergeant Tim Ford. It was his duty to continue to work for the Yancer family. Tim, can you come forward, please? Tim is a man of action, not a man of words. So I'm respecting his wish not to make comments today, but I want the whole world to know who he is and recognize him appropriately. Tim is a 28-year law enforcement veteran. He's one of the few people who still work at Kent that have been here longer than me. He has had a remarkable career with numerous assignments, some of which include assignments as a canine officer, detective, detective sergeant, and special investigations supervisor. Sadly for us, Tim is retiring at the end of this year, starting a much-deserved retirement life. And while his career was excellent outside of what happened with this case, we all know, and I think he would agree, that arresting Kenneth Kundrat and bringing justice to the Yancer family is the pinnacle achievement of his career. If you were going to script a way to retire as a crime fighter, you couldn't script it any better than this. I'd like to take a moment to show some appreciation and congratulate Sergeant Tim Ford. Next, I would like to call upon Mayor Dana Ralph for her remarks.
Thank you, Chief. Dana Ralph, Mayor for the City of Kent. I want to start out with where that round of applause ended. Detective Ford took that call in 2015 and made this case his own. He knew how important it was for the Yancer family to have this closure and see this come to resolution, and he took that very, very seriously. I want to say thank you to all of the officers, detectives, outside agencies that brought this case along for so many years. All the way back to that first officer on scene that night. Well, you heard the chief talk about it. We didn't have the DNA technology then, but they did the work, and the result was we now have a suspect in custody after all of these years. So, Sergeant Ford, thank you. To the Yancer family, bittersweet day. My hope is that this has brought a tiny bit of closure and resolution. Thank you for your patience with us, with the system. Thank you for never giving up on Dottie. Thank you for making sure that this suspect is in custody. That phone call, that kept things in motion. And your commitment to her should not go unrecognized by everyone that is watching today. So, thank you so much. To our community, what I want to say is your police department is amazing, and this is what they do. Each and every one of their victims that things that happen in the city of Kent, we take it very, very seriously, and these cases become the most important thing that our officers are doing. They will never give up. This case is a prime example of that. While some cases are solved very quickly, there are others that take time, take advancements in technology. But making sure that our officers have the resources to use that technology is absolutely a priority for this city. And I believe, a priority for our residents, because this is the kind of outcomes that can be achieved if we have those tools that are available to us. Again, this is a very bittersweet day, but I feel like it is an ending much deserved. You can see very clearly in the story of Dottie's life, my favorite picture is the fact that it's her hugging participants at the Special Olympics. That is a title that only very, very special people have, and Dottie was that person. The fact that Sergeant Ford, our police department, was able to bring this to conclusion is absolutely the ending that she deserved to this case. We were very, very grateful, and again, I want to thank everyone for their support and all of the officers that got this case to this point. Thank you very much, and it is my pleasure now to introduce FBI Special Agent in Charge, Rick Colodi.
Good afternoon. I'm Rick Colodi. I'm the Special Agent in Charge of FBI Seattle. I appreciate the invitation from Chief Padilla and the Yonser family to allow us to participate in this event, as well as joining our partners from the Kent Police Department and King County Prosecutor's Office. I'm honored to represent the FBI in several components who participated in this case. That includes FBI Seattle, FBI Little Rock, the FBI lab at Quantico, our behavior analysis unit, and the Violent Crime Apprehension Program. We're here today to announce the arrest and charges because of the determination of the Kent Police Department. They serve as an example of what our communities should expect. They never gave up pursuing justice for the victim and her family during this 44-year investigation. They remain committed for decades in pursuit of additional tools and forensics relevant to Dottie's homicide. The Kent Police Department contacted the FBI a few years ago regarding Dottie's case and new leads in the investigation. We were proud to support the investigation by providing specialized technical and analytic support to progress the case. This included extensive analysis to identify and locate individuals critical to this investigation. The partnership of shared assets is critical to law enforcement agencies and their joint focus on narrowing leads and resolving crime. As we often do, the FBI can connect law enforcement agencies at the federal, state, tribal, and local levels across the nation. The FBI's 56 field offices have integral relationships with each other, as well as robust relationships with our partners in our areas of responsibility. FBI Seattle coordinated with FBI Little Rock to support this investigation, which is where the subject lived. FBI Little Rock also connected the Kent Police Department with the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office. The FBI offered support from the Behavior Analysis Unit and the Violent Crime Apprehension Program to aid in this investigation. Beginning in the 1980s, law enforcement across the U.S. and abroad began looking to these resources for guidance, especially in unusual cases, to include historic homicide investigations. Finally, this case stands as an example of the commitment and the determination held by members of the FBI, the Kent Police Department, and other law enforcement partners to pursue justice and accountability. We want our communities to know that despite the passage of time, our efforts stand for victims. Let me say that again. We want our communities to know that despite the passage of time, our efforts to stand for victims does not diminish. I'm thankful the FBI had an opportunity to serve and provide resources in this case as an opportunity to add value to our communities and to families affected by crime. Next, I'd like to introduce Casey McNerthy from the King County Deputy Prosecutor's Office.
On behalf of King County Prosecutor Lisa Mannion and Senior Deputy Prosecutors Jackie Lawrence and Mary Barbosa, I would like to thank the Kent Police Department for their work over many, many years. We are here because of Sergeant Tim Ford and the work that he and others in the Kent Police Department did. No family asked to go through what the Yonser family has gone through and endured for the last several decades, and will continue to endure over the years to come as this trial continues. hopefully it is reassuring to the people of King County that there are sergeants like Tim Ford and departments like the Kent Police Department who don't forget about people like Dottie and never did. To people who may be in a similar position as the defendant, wondering if there's going to be a knock on the door, there will be at some point. It doesn't matter if the case is a week old or 44 years old. At some point there will be a knock on the door, and that's because of people like the Kent Police Department and others like them. King County prosecutors have charged this defendant with murder in the first degree. We anticipate that he will be back in King County at some point. That could be as early as a week. It could be several weeks later, but he is expected to return here. The case is expected to take a significant amount of time, as murder cases do. It is important to take that time to make sure that we do it thoughtfully and in the correct way that we anticipate doing it. I also need to note that defendants are innocent until proven guilty in court, which can be difficult for some people to hear. But it is important to say that and to present the most complete picture to the court and to present the case that we believe can hold up in court. Thanks again to each member of the Kent Police Department for their work on this case, and Sergeant Tim Ford for the years of dedication. It is so reassuring to know that there are people like him and officers like those in Kent who care about each victim and make sure that justice is done and the most complete picture can be presented to the court. I now want to turn things over to Dottie's older brother, Jim Yancer, who has a statement on behalf of the family.
Dottie loved life and people. She was an awesome aunt to many nieces and nephews. She was a daughter to Mom and Dad Yancer. She was a sister to 8 brothers and sisters, and a sister-in-law who loved her family. She loved her job at Boeing and had many friends that traveled and played together. She was a hugger for the Special Olympics and is missed by all. A special thank you to Tim Ford, again, with the Kent Police Department, who became her avenger for us and renewed our faith and gave us hope with his compassion and faith that her killer would be found. We thank all who have been involved in supporting Tim Ford and the numerous other law enforcement personnel that have gotten us to this point. The apprehension of Dottie's killer has also given hope to so many other families that are waiting for a resolution to their active or cold case. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I could not be prouder of the incredible work by the Kent Police Department and Sergeant Tim Ford specifically, the detectives who aided him, Detective Brendan Wells, Detective Daniel Yagi, Detective Aaron Lai. There were also many other people and organizations who provided assistance, as you've heard, that led to the arrest and filing charges of Mr. Kundert. Please bear with me. I think this is worth reading and we want to recognize. King County Prosecutor's Office Senior Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Mary Barboza and Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Jacqueline Lawrence. King County Medical Examiner's Office, the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab, scientists Denise Rodier and Rebecca Nehart, Washington State Attorney General's Office, Identifiers International, owner Dr. Colleen Fitzpatrick, and Dr. Forensic Genealogist Misty Gillis, FBI Quantico, their lab on behavioral analysis and violent crime apprehension with analyst Dr. Melissa Kovetsky, the FBI Seattle Field Office, SAC Colodey's team, Special Agent Kara O'Reilly, Staff of Operations Special Tactical Specialist Coordinator, that's the title, Kelly Glasgow, FBI Little Rock, Field Office Special Agent Sophie Feather Gardner, the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office in Arkansas, Lieutenant Chasta Harrison, the 20th Judicial Drug Task Force in Arkansas, Commander Heath Jones, and Investigator Wesley Potts, and the City of Clinton, Arkansas Police Department Chief Jay Murdoch. They all were major contributors to this outcome. In closing, I want to take a moment to point out that there are thousands of more cold cases that have not been solved. It is our duty to do all we can to see those cases through. This case and so many others that remain unsolved highlight the need for resources dedicated to criminal forensic work, and specifically DNA comparison examination, as well as the law enforcement personnel, investigators needed to keep these cases going. The families of these victims deserve that from us. I also want to reaffirm that the Kent Police Department will continue to be relentless in our pursuit of violent criminals, including those offenders who managed to evade us for years. With the advancements in DNA technology and other forensic tools, they can run, but they can't hide. It is also important that we not lose sight of the fact that a wonderful human being was taken from us 44 years ago. And while we stand in full support of the Yancer family as they continue to deal with their loss and heal, we also take considerable satisfaction in knowing that our suspect, the suspected murderer, has been finally brought to justice. Thank you.
We're going to take this opportunity now to answer a few questions. Feel free to just ask your question, and then the appropriate person will just give them time to step forward to answer your question. Please be respectful of each other. I know you got questions. Then we'll break off. We'll start with Deborah.
Thank you. Deborah Horn from Paro 7. Is it possible, Sergeant Ford, to get you to answer a question?
That's not the question.
Well, okay. Well, I need you to come up to the front.
I tried.
Why this case? What about this that you decided 9 years ago that you were going to devote yourself to?
Listening to Ken talk to me on the phone. Their loss. I knew about the case from prior. I knew her name. Didn't know all the facts. But once I got into it, I couldn't put it down. It just took off from me. Is that enough?
Thanks, Tim.
I'd like to ask another question if I
Oh, you're not sent resolutions.
Well, the mayor did say that this was bittersweet, presumably, for the family. Is someone from the family able to talk to us about that? I mean, yes, the person who allegedly killed Dottie is in jail, but Dottie is still gone. But whoever speaks, we need you at a microphone, if you can.
Yeah, I'm gonna step in. We did pregame this a little bit, and the family just wanted to be here and wasn't really in position to answer questions. So, if you have any questions from the presenters, that would those are great questions. Thank you.
How many cold cases do you have? You said thousands. I'm assuming not thousands here in Kent.
Correct. I was referring to the thousands just in Washington State that are out there. Many, many more across the country. I don't have an exact number of how many we have, but Kent does carry several of them.
And you do care. I mean, I hear from people when crimes haven't been solved, when someone they love has been murdered, they care for 40 years, for 4 years, for 40 years, for 100 years. They
Yeah, you saw the emotional impact on Sergeant Ford. That is not unique to him. Our detectives deal directly with the families of the victims, and it does carry with them. They have considerable responsibility, and trust me, they want nothing more than to solve these cases. I will tell you, to give you an example of how impactful it is, over the course of the last few days, I have received emails from our retirees, people that were working 44 years ago. And this case, they were all over it. They are ecstatic that it's been solved. They are very, very connected to the fact that they were able to do their job so that today this generation can do its job. And so, yeah, it means a ton.
Chief, what was Mr. Kundrick's demeanor when they knocked on the door and told him he was under arrest?
I asked the same question, thank you. I was told that he was pretty non-responsive, pretty emotionless. I know that if someone came to me and said I was arrested for anything, failing to pay a parking ticket, it would be a big shock. I am told that there was a non-response. It was just, okay.
Do they think he knew this day was coming and he was living out on that 32-acre piece of property by himself, trying to stay off the radar?
You know, I can only speculate, but I would imagine after 44 years, you're feeling pretty good that maybe this is never, that knock on the door is never going to come, but he was wrong.
Well, you had tested his brother, and so it seems to me, are they in contact, and did they not have a conversation about it? I know you don't know that, but you were in contact with someone he was related to.
Correct. When we asked for the sample DNA, obviously that had to concern him considerably. And so, yeah, I imagine he figured someday, at that point maybe, he was in trouble.
There are news reports that he was at a Walmart, and that it was through that you got the cigarette as he threw it out in Walmart, at a Walmart.
I have not confirmed those details.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
So good for people who smoke, I suppose?
Yeah.
Because obviously you have to get his DNA somehow.
It's true. And within the confines of the law and respecting privacy and constitutional rights, our detectives are very creative at figuring out a way to do that. Cigarettes is only one mechanism that we can do that, and we will.
Chief, I do need to ask questions about the shooting today. Do you want to take those on?
I'll take those offline.
Does anybody else have any questions?
How much do you know about the suspect's history or involvement with law enforcement?
So interesting, Mr. Kundrick did not have a substantial criminal past. We were able to locate some misdemeanor crimes, but nothing that would jump to murder. So either he's very fortunate to get away with what he does, or this may have been a rare instance of opportunity. So I don't know that we have more than that. Yeah,
Mental health records or anything like that?
not that I know of.
So then, Chief, you don't have a motive?
We are working to determine that still, but currently, no. We don't know what the motive was.
Chief, would you like, sorry, go.
What about a weapon?
There was, the cause of death was determined by the ME as asphyxiation, so she was choked.
Chief, are you looking for people that might have known him in 1980 to help us get the timeline, or what he was doing here, or how he behaved?
Yeah, thank you for that. Like I said, we're continuing to gather as much evidence as we can for the case, and if anyone has any information regarding this, or just general information, we would welcome that. Hit us up. You can call 911 and tell them to connect with the Kent Police, and we'll take that information. Absolutely. Thank you.
Do you think he might have other victims, given the nature of this case?
We don't have anything that suggests that at this point, but obviously his DNA is in a system. It's been identified. If other DNA hits come up, that will be something obviously every law enforcement agency will follow up on. We are also taking the time as a department to look at our other cases to see if there is connections, but at this time we don't have information that indicates that's the case.
Do you know when he left Washington State and how long he's been in Athens?
I don't.
I do not know that exactly. I know he spent, sorry.
Nope.
I don't know that exactly, but I know he spent some time in different states, Wyoming, Colorado, Arizona. He seemed to travel around the country, living kind of a transitory lifestyle. But I don't know the exact year he left Washington State.
Or what he did for a living?
He did some siding, some construction work, it sounds like, but I don't know all the details of that yet.
Nor how long he's lived in Arkansas?
I do not know.
Yeah, are there any more questions? Yes.
Chief, if you could just talk about this, you're looking at other cases. Did you have any other cases around that time frame, 1980s, that are unsolved, that you are actively looking at?
I don't have a specific recall of each of the cases. Kent was a different place and time back then, and so homicides were extremely rare. And so we would have to go back and check, but I don't know of any specific cases in 1980.
How many homicides did you have in 1980? I'm thinking of it in the context of today. You didn't have that many?
We didn't have that many. I would be surprised if this wasn't the only one that year, but I don't have that. We can get that information
Yeah,
for you.
I would like to.
Sure.